I'm down here in the corner. I am going to go over the information that I was not able to give today um, so that we can catch up a little bit. And this can be watched before class on Wednesday, or you can do it over spring break if you like. First of all the information as we get into attachment, attunement and attachment, which is what we're talking about, please know that this is very much part of the information that I know can be very personal, and in being personal can be very triggering to our own histories. And so, if it is so, the information is important. You can read it in the text, but if watching the videos or looking at it or thinking about it too much, always take time with that and take care of yourself. That's all I want to. I definitely want to say that though, that I understand that, and I know that that can happen, especially I think with attachment. All right, so I'm going to get into this so it doesn't take too long because we're going to watch a few of the videos in here. And I tried to embed them, and it's not working, so you have to deal with my techie issues. So I did go over this in class, how the 20th century saw some shifts and changes, especially around the 50s and 60s, in how we perceive infants and their needs. We moved from behaviorism into humanism and cognitive into an upswing with our knowledge around neuroscience, where it became really wed to psychology. And that has really changed and shifted the way we parent, or at least the way we suggest parenting in the field, because we began to understand that babies, infants are experience expectant for attachment, but we are experience dependent in how that attachment occurs. It's going to depend on our individual experiences. So these two men, Harry Harlow and John Bowlby, played a big part in this. Harry Harlow with his monkey experiments, which we're going to watch one in a minute, and John Bowlby as the father of attachment theory, looking at institutionalized children and really questioning that, and who worked with Mary Ainsworth, who then created The Strange Situation, which is assessed attachment styles in between parents and children. All right, so see, I did try to embed it. For some reason, it's not working for me, so let me just pull it up. Bear with me, I apologize.
Search for new knowledge about our universe, our world, and ourselves. This monkey is an orphan, separated from his mother since the day of his birth. Literally, his life hangs by a thread, a soft cheesecloth pad that is his only companion, his only comfort. Once a day, the pad is removed for cleaning.
This is the laboratory of psychologist Harry Harlow.
Troubled, distressed, permanently depressed.
Studying monkeys to better understand
Human relationships.
He may die for want of love.
Harlow believes he can use science to study love. With a series of pioneering experiments, he explores territory where few scientists have ventured.
Harlow said that there was such a thing as a science of love, for example, that love, the kind of intimacy that characterized relationships between mothers and infants, although in his case he studied monkeys, could be the object of science, that you literally could move love into a laboratory, put it under a microscope.
Harlow is studying love because he believes it makes an indelible impact on a young life. The relationship between a mother and her child, what Harlow calls our earliest social environment, could hold the key to explaining behavior throughout life. Harlow designs a set of ingenious experiments. He raises a baby monkey, allowing it to choose between two surrogate mothers, a wire mother that feeds it, and a cloth mother that doesn't. A cloth mother that Harlow thinks might provide something else: comfort and love.
Here's baby 106, weaned on a wire mother. He's going to the wire mother.
But this infant quickly runs to the cloth mother, where he will stay for the next 18 hours cuddling. In Harlow's mind, choosing nurturing over sustenance. In another experiment, Harlow creates a fearful situation. Whom does the infant turn to now?
Let's find out what his reactions to his mother are when we frighten him.
He's scared, all right.
And he does what any child will do in a similar situation. He was running to his mother, to touch her, to drive away his fear.
To Harlow, there is something about the experience of comfort and love, even more than food, that seems crucial to all these monkeys. But what happens when the infant is raised alone, without any mother at all, wire or cloth? In this situation, the orphan monkey stays alone. He won't even go to the cloth mother when frightened, but retreats into his own world. Harlow believes he has shown how want of love can damage an infant for life, and he worries the same is true for people.
What comes through loud and clear in Harry Harlow's experiment was that the early experience and the environment were crucial to the healthy development of the infant child, and that in a sense, if you messed up, if the right kind of maternal presence was not there during the critical years, then that infant might grow up to be an adult incapable of forming healthy relationships with other kinds of people.
Okay, so what we saw in that video is, well, it's heartbreaking, first of all. And I know it's really hard to watch the monkeys. And in another sense, we owe a great deal of gratitude for what we learned about attachment and about that experienced expectant, part of us that we have. And you saw the monkey that didn't have any care and how it was doing the rocking, which is what we talked about with the sensory experience, trying to soothe itself. And when we get into styles of attachment, we might call this monkey avoidant because it has learned to avoid any types of attachment because it hasn't had any. And so the brain has not been able to network around those experiences. It doesn't know how to have them. It doesn't know what to do with that. So it's kind of lost that. Now that the woman's last statements around, if you missed out, then the child would grow up not to know how to have these relationships. Keep in mind the idea of working models, okay? And Bowlby's thoughts that these are working, that they're growing, that it's not necessarily in stone, though whatever happens in those first experiences, in those first relationships, is the foundation, is the blueprint for what can be built upon later. And if it does get too long before a child has any kind of care, then it is going to be really difficult to build those networks, because the networks that are there that have been built without that attachment are going to be really strong and really hard to break. So I shared Bowlby's ideas of working models in these quotes, that we build up working models of the world and we build working models of ourselves based on these first experiences that we have. And keep in mind that the brain and the neurons are networking in order to build those habits of mind, those habits of experience that create the expectations that we have even unconsciously for what we run into in life. Okay, so this is one thing I definitely want to go over, the idea that the right hemisphere, which is very strong in infancy and very attached to emotional centers and body centers and nonverbal understanding, is also, so with that right amygdala, is really strong in being able to answer that question of, is this safe or is this okay or not? That's the amygdala's question, as we talked about a while back. And so infants, even though they can't speak, even though they may not understand what is safe or what is not, their system is reading the nonverbals and their amygdala is reacting. based upon that information. And cortisol is running if they feel threatened, and that is impacting their hippocampus, their memory centers, their learning centers, all of those centers in the process of first being built. And that's kind of important, right? And the amygdala works faster than the thinky brain anyway, and infants don't really have a very strong thinky brain at all. So all they're really getting is this nonverbal input and these emotional centers reacting to stress or to care within their environment. So I want to talk a little bit about the HPA axis, which is being blueprinted at this time in life. It controls those vital functions for sleep and alertness and all of those things, hunger, thirst, as well as stress. And it runs the cortisol through the system. And I like definitely this third bullet point. Mother in the first year is helping set up the right brain of the infant by downregulating the stress response and upregulating the positive emotion. And that shapes that blueprint for the HPA axis. In that first year, the mother, which they do say is really strong with all of these nonverbals, the maternal. Now, of course, men can learn this capacity just in the knowledge of it, that it's important that babies only have nonverbals and facial cues. And so it's helping to set up that entire HPA. The biology of our emotional system is being set up based on these experiences. Every major psychiatric disorder has a dysregulation of stress and emotions, a dysregulation of our HPA axis. And so that's why it's so important in these first 2 years, as the foundation of it is being built. Even though it can be shifted and changed some, it's always going to have had this initial foundation.